Hey everyone, it's Joe Waxman, and I'm back with another mini reading. This morning, I would like to go over the chart of Jerry Lewis, the famous comedian back in the old days, in old school. Probably not very popular or well known in today's crowd, but I grew up watching some of his movies. He was popular even when I was a kid. Hilarious. And I got the idea because what I did Jim Carrey's chart yesterday, and it reminded me of Jerry Lewis, even though I had no idea what Jerry Lewis's chart looked like. And I was right. There's some similarities I'm going to show you. So that's why I chose Jerry Lewis. I think he's a neat guy, and I just wanted to figure out that Jim Carrey similarity, which was interesting. Okay. Now, Jerry Lewis was an old school comedian, got his start with Dean Martin. Actually, they paired up, and Dean Martin is a singer, I guess, an old school singer. But yeah, he was born March 16th, 1926, 12:15 p.m. And he was in a bunch of movies. I think like The Nutty Professor was one of them that was probably the most successful. And Eddie Murphy did a remake of that in more recent years. I think the original one was probably better. But anyway, Sun, Kazemi, Uranus in Pisces, conjunct the MC. First thing, extremely powerful combination right here. Kazemi means in the heart of the sun, and it's within a certain. It's in the same exact degree within a certain number of minutes, 17 minutes, something like that. It's 3 minutes. So it's extremely Kazemi. That means extremely. Uranus is dead center of the sun. It's supposed to empower the planet, whatever planet it is, and superpower it, make it extremely potent and powerful. Uranus is the shocking planet, the planet of awakening, the planet of total uniqueness and rebellion and independence. And anyone who has strong Uranus, like I do, I have it conjunct my ascendant, so I'm very shocking, potentially shocking in many ways. I'm also kind of weird. It creates an absurdity, a weirdness. And Jerry Lewis, if you know who he is, he just has this electric, he's like almost electrified, like he's electric, right? Yeah. And it's this jerking electric thing, like somebody's hooked up, like to, plugged in to the wall outlet. They have like electricity running through them, and they can be very spastic, and all of a sudden, like, just like shocking. And that's where a lot of where we get the humor from. That's the humor. That's one of the humorous things. If anything, it just creates this weirdness, absurdity, right? And that's not his only indication, but that's the first thing. And Pisces is very much associated with fantasy, fiction, deception, illusion. So film, naturally, being in the movies, being in film, that's very Piscean. Pisces is all creativity, but like this right here, conjunct the MC, I mean, that's just screams movies. It just screams being seen and heard. More seen, but like, movies, theater, being seen, being publicly recognized. Sun is also ruling the second house. Oops, sorry about that. Of speech. These are actually trading places. This is a mutual aspect, the Sun and Neptune, because Neptune is the co-ruler, the spiritual ruler of Pisces, and Sun rules Leo. So second and basically 10th house cusp MC, even though it's in the 9th sign. So he was probably a lot more religious, philosophical than we know. He might have kept that to himself, but he might have had a very spiritual, religious philosophy outlook on life. And very open-minded. Uranus makes you very, very open-minded and thinking about the whole world, right? People with strong Uranus, they like to think about the whole world. And astrology a lot of times too, because Uranus is the significator of astrology. But very big-minded, very spiritually oriented, thinking about things in a big sense. Trading places with the speech, the second house. Second house in Leo. Sometimes we can see If there's like a second house stellium, especially in Leo, we'll see actors coming out of this here. I think Robert De Niro has a bunch of planets here in Leo. Because the speech is being emphasized. Neptune in the second, by the way, is very, very generous, right? They love to give money. I have Neptune in the second, hard to make money, but if you're a big guy like Jerry Lewis, you know, famous, you can make a lot of money. And he probably gave away a lot of money. And we know that later in life, he earned a lot of money for, what was it? Sorry. For the sick kids. I just want to get this right because I think it's important. He was the head of the charity work, Muscular Dystrophy Association, and he won like records for earning more. I think he earned over like $2 billion, and it was like world records because he used to have these telethons. Like after his acting career, as he got older, he used to have these Jerry Lewis telethons, and he earned phenomenal amounts of money for the muscular dystrophy kids. So like very, again, that's the spiritual, philosophical, wide open mind of Uranus and Pisces, deeply compassionate nature, right? And Neptune in the second house being very generous with money. Like he didn't earn that money for himself. He was earning it for others. He made his money in his films, and I don't know how his finances went, you know, but he wasn't doing it for himself. It was an act of charity. He was a real philanthropist, a really good guy. As far as I know, I mean, I haven't uncovered any dirt on him, though. I haven't dug very deeply into his character. I just know that he did raise over $2 billion for muscular dystrophy, and it was like world record. Like, so huge philanthropic whatever guy. Yeah, so that's very Piscean, very Aquarian, very Neptunian in the second house. So yeah, that's very prominent for him here, second and 10th house cusp in the ninth sign. Moon is exalted in Taurus at 0 degrees. That's on the 11th house cusp, a few degrees away. Basically, 11th house is career success. It's networking, hopes, wishes, and dreams. You know, big social house for social groups. You know, internet networking. This is also why he was such a good, so good at reaching out to people and connecting with others, because it's that groups and networks, the ability to network. Sales and business are you know, also associated with this house, mainly in the 7th house, but 11th house is trine, so it's still part of it because of networking, right? The groups and networks. When your moon is in the 11th house, or you have strong 11th house placements, you can really reach out and affect groups, right? And that's what his you know, muscular dystrophy telethon, Jerry Lewis telethon. Anyone who's older knows about these Jerry Lewis telethons. I mean, he was famous for that, right? Just as famous as he was for, maybe even more famous for his telethons than he was for his comedy work. But originally it was comedy. So it's a very diverse kind of character, Jerry Lewis, and very respectable for what he did, right? He wasn't just self-serving. He was really about helping others because he did not have muscular dystrophy. So why was he helping these kids? Again, this compassion and this awareness, conjunct his sun, Uranus conjunct his sun. Exalted moon, showing like incredible emotional stability. Like he didn't have to worry. He wasn't like self-obsessed, because with a mind like that, a solid, stable mind, like he was just well taken care of. He had everything. He had money, he had fame, he had success, he had notoriety. And so like his mind was not troubled. He was not depressed. He was not, you know, fighting his own demons. He had an exalted moon. A moon, like this moon is at 0 degrees. So it's like a baby Taurus moon. So it's like going to extremes, ability to go further. When a planet's at 0 degrees, it's like beginner's mind. It just doesn't know how far it's going to go. So I think that's also contributing to his success in general, career success, ability to network, ability to raise billions of dollars, over $2 billion for charity, which is absurd even in today's standards. It's huge, huge amount, right? Planets at 0 degrees can go to very far lengths. And with strong 10th, 9th, 10th, especially 10th house cusp and then 10th sign indicators, this shows very strong career success. 11th house, if it's in the 10th house, they're gonna have a very strong career. If it's in the 11th house, you're gonna have career success, and both together shows career success. And if there was Saturn here, like it was Van Gogh, it would show strong career, limiting career success until later, but that's not the case here. He doesn't have Saturn here. And this is also, his moon is the ascendant lord. So he's going into the 11th house, into career success, into groups and networks, networking, ability to be, popular within groups, right? An ability to command groups, networks. He has North Node in the first, showing that I have North Node in the first. It's not an easy thing, and generally we wouldn't expect success from somebody with North Node in the first and at a young age, but he does have success indicators, which I'm going to cover with Mercury in the 10th, and these two as well, Sun and Moon. Later in life, North Node in the first indicates success. I guess, it's not necessarily the case. It could go either way, especially being conjunct an exalted planet in the 7th. But it shows confusion about identity when young with North Node in the first. And the person can actually become criminally minded if the opportunity circumstances are available with North Node in the first, or at least just have a very questionable early first half of life up until 42. Also, he has Pluto in the 12th coming into the first house. It's 5 degrees from the ascendant, so strongly affecting the ascendant. This is very powerful. Either way, Pluto in the 12th will call for a more spiritual existence, because otherwise it's going to create chaos and crisis and troubles for the person, and require them to be more spiritually minded, because that's what it wants in the 12th house especially. It's going to transform wherever it sits. So this is transforming his identity, transforming who he is as a person. We observe that in his life he went through these really huge transformations, right? From being a slapstick comedian to a total philanthropist, making money for muscular dystrophy kids, earning billions for them. That's a huge transformation. Pluto is going to transform his subconscious and his conscious identity here, both. We have Mercury in the 10th, very strong indicator for public speaking in some fashion, some way, because it's also ruling the 3rd house of expression. Great for any type of public speaking, but also for acting. Very expressive, highly expressive in the most visible way possible. This is the 10th house in Aries, very inspiring, very poignant, pointed, like focused, like we really get this jarring expression here, this very loud, obnoxious, focused expression. And if you watch his movies, you'll get this very commanding, with sharp way of speaking. And Virgo is sharp in itself. It's also showing early success with the 4th house in Virgo, being that this shows early childhood development. So with Mercury ruling the 4th house in the 10th house, or 10th house and 10th sign, showing early childhood success, early childhood visibility. And he wasn't extremely successful. I mean, he was successful young, not as an early child, but young. So this shows young rise to success, right? He didn't have to wait long. And he was young when he coupled up with Dean Martin and became a success, and then went on to films and, all sorts of success. Mars, the dispositor of Aries, is in the seventh, exalted, right? So what this shows is exalted Mars in the seventh shows that he could find partnerships with quality partners. An exalted planet in the seventh would show somebody who's very top notch, right? Dean Martin is that person who helped him in his career. Also, Mars in the seventh, not good for relationships, but better when it's exalted. So he's going to attract top-notch partners, but he's going to be very commanding in any partnership, in any sort of relationship. Mars in the seventh is like, it's not a great planet to be in the seventh because it's too bossy, too forceful, too warrior. This is the house of equal partnership. Mars is not a planet of equality. Mars is a planet of dominance. So it's good in the sixth house where it can really fight. It's good in the 10th house where it can fight as well. Those are the two best houses. Third house is also good because third house is a house of courage and self-will, self-determination. So very courageous here in Aries in the 10th house, third house ruler. So relationships would have suffered. He's just too bossy and too aggressive in relationships and partnerships. I'm sure he's a lot to handle one-on-one. That's why he needed to be a leader in whatever he did, like leading his film, leading and directing his own films. He was also directing, so starring and directing in his own films. He was also technologically innovative, which is the sign of Uranus and Aquarius, which I'm going to get to next. He developed some kind of video assist, where he could watch the playback of a scene he just recorded without waiting for them to send back because it was in their early days, so they had to like wait for the film to be developed and send it back. He could watch the playback right away. He invented this, and then reshoot it based on the playback, the video playback, without having to wait for it to be developed. And so it was much more expedient and efficient. And that's very much Uranus. The Uranus is the inventor. So is Aquarius. These are inventive signs. And they also, it's also like a big part of humor and weirdness, because they're just shockingly different and absurd and weird and unique. Uranus doesn't reference the past or anything else in order to have its expression. Its expression is just completely self-driven, self-derivated. It's completely unique, completely unto itself. That's Uranus' nature. It's just shockingly new, right? So this is difficult. He was difficult to work with, but great, good for being your own boss, and good for like really powerful partnerships, right? Now, remember when I said Jim Carrey? He reminds me of Jim Carrey, right? Okay, well, it was a good call, because Jim Carrey has Jupiter exactly conjunct Mercury in Aquarius. Okay, this is a little different because it's Venus, but Jupiter exactly conjunct, less than a degree apart, Venus in Aquarius. Okay, Aquarius is that weirdness. Aquarius is that ability, that slapstick, that like making faces, like the funny faces, and doing the weird things, and the just like shockingly weird and absurd. Jim Carrey is like this weirdo. He's so weird, and he'll just do like the weirdest things. And like so is Jerry Lewis, and they're just like they just like slapstick and like it's just that stupid absurdity that makes you laugh, just because like it's just shockingly new, and just like wow, like I never would have thought like anyone could be like that strange and weird. So Jupiter is expanding the weirdness. Venus, it could either be, Mercury has a similar vibe. Mercury is a little more intellectual. Venus is like, the joy, it's the other benefic. It's pleasure, leisure, feminine. But in Aquarius, it brings out, again, it's just the weirdness. It's bringing out the weirdness, expanding the weirdness. Jupiter expands everything it touches. So Jupiter is expanding Venus. They're both in the 8th house, and the 8th house is a difficult house. The 8th house really, it knocks you down. It's just like if you get too high, the 8th house will knock you down. I have Sun and Venus in the 8th house. very difficult. Makes you accident prone, makes you prone towards crises and periodic death, crushing defeat, things like that, right? Not very pleasant, but ultimately powerful, very aware of secrets, occult knowledge, just being, you know, all the Scorpio things like sexuality, just hidden things in life, understanding the underlying things in life, the underlying motivations, psychology, being able to spot when people are lying, being able to see through deceptions, right? And here, all the negative crisis is going to be lifted up because these are the two benevolents. So Jupiter and Venus together are going to make it so that he's less likely to have these crushing defeats, these crushing crisis periods where he's just facing certain death. But at the same time, Jupiter and Venus are going to take a hit. This is great, by the way, for inheritance and receiving money, other people's money, because 8th house is the house of other people's money. So the $2+ billion he received in donations from other people, from charity, brilliant combination here, right? I mean, that's huge. That's ability to raise money from others, to have other people's money. Now, because Jupiter and also Venus are the benefics, and generally very benevolent, that's showing other people's money in a good way. Now, if this was Mars and Saturn or Pluto, that could mean theft, right? That could mean thievery. That could mean other people's money in a not good way, right? Taking other people's money, right? With Neptune here, Mars, Saturn, you know, or Cancer Mars here, Cancer Saturn, Cancer Pluto, things like that. Some devious combination along with Venus that would create somebody who might want to steal money. Here he's taking other people's money. He's not taking other people's money. He's soliciting other people's money in a very positive way, right? For charity, not for his own selfish needs. Jupiter's benevolent. Jupiter wants to give. It's very benefic. But this is the dual nature of what's happening here. The comedy, very much so, along with this electric sun. Uranus is the co-ruler of Aquarius. So he's bringing that into his sun. And there's that absurd Aquarian energy that Jim Carrey has, and no doubt other comedians have. I know, like, Robin Williams has Uranus conjunct Mars, right? So a similar thing. We get that Robin Williams, like, Mars rules the physicality, right? It's the body's ability to move. And here Uranus is like supercharging his physicality, right? And he's like, it's like he's on speed. Maybe he was on speed. Maybe he's on coke too. But it's the Uranus conjunct Mars. Uranus conjunct the sun. Planets in Aquarius. Can be very scientific, but also just extremely absurd, right? Extremely weird and unique. Okay. So that's pretty much it. I mean, Saturn in the 5th, normally I would say, like, okay, that's not good for early success, early fame. Saturn in Scorpio, nonetheless, very heavy, very dark. You know, probably not good for fame or recognition. But because he has these other indicators, this is kind of downplayed. And the dispositor of Saturn is Mars, exalted in the 7th. So that's a good indication. But this also says that he has other interests. You know, Saturn in here would be much more serious-minded. Saturn in the 5th house. So fun and games are limited because of Saturn and Scorpio. And so this is also why he had a dual career, because Saturn here wants to be serious about all the fun things, about all the creative things. And he did not have his own kids, as far as I know. Yeah, I mean, so I briefly read his Wikipedia, but it didn't mention anything about kids. I don't recall anything about kids. I don't recall anything about relationships. This would definitely delay kids. It would definitely delay all the fun and games and the happiness. And so it would make a person a lot more serious and heavy-minded and deep deep-natured. And he was very watery. I mean, he does have a grand water trine. So then it's really enhancing the depth of feeling, the compassion, the concern for others in the world, and I think that's why, like, like he could pull off, and again, this is similar to Jim Carrey, right? He could pull off the comedy when he was young, especially because South Node is in Capricorn, so that's much more career oriented. But then as he got older, he's moving into Cancer, right? North Node in Cancer and the self, and his true identity. And Cancer is much more compassionate and caring. And so this activated, plus in Vedic system, the nodes have trinal influence. So it's going to be the water signs, enhancing, this is going to be moving towards the water signs, which means that he's going to be much more serious and deep-natured and feeling-oriented as he gets older. So he's using his influence there to be more compassionate and good-natured and philanthropic, making money, raising over $2 billion for the sick kids, muscular dystrophy. And there's also another indicator of that. Chiron is in the 10th, right? Chiron is not a planet of superficial fame or notoriety. Chiron indicates a healer, right? A wounded healer, and empathy for the wounded and the rejected. And it also indicates somebody who is kind of rejected from the public, on the lower end, but then somebody who can make a career out of chironic things, healing, helping others. Square the nose too, look at that. So this shows anything that's square the nose shows a kind of destiny in life, something that's destined to happen, whether good or bad. You have to read the signs and the aspects. Sometimes it's bad, sometimes it can show death or catastrophe, disaster. Other times it can show things like this, a career as a healer, famous in the 10th house, Aries, inspirational, inspiring others to give, inspiring others to heal. And that's what he did. Jerry Lewis telethons, right? So gotta hand it to the guy, like, had quite a successful career as a comedian. Then he did get fat, by the way. Jupiter conjunct Venus, really expanding, and then Moon in Taurus at 0 degrees, really expanding that sensorial indulgence, making him fat, basically. But still, so what? I mean, such a generous guy, such a compassionate, warm-hearted guy. And yeah, he probably was a jerk in times. Like, he probably was difficult to deal with. There was a lot of people who were saying, like, he was abusive. I'm sure he was abusive, but ultimately really good-natured. With Mars in the 7th house, they're going to be abusive. They're going to be commanding. They're going to be telling you what to do, and they're not going to take orders from anyone. It's not an easy placement. They're going to be a jerk, but ultimately they can still have a very good heart and good nature, and he showed that. So, bravo to Jerry Lewis, great comedian and good-hearted philanthropist. So hats off, Jerry Lewis, great guy. Go watch a film. I think I'm going to watch one of his films again because he's funny as heck and absurd. And if you see his chart, then you can see that in there. And great comparison, Jim Carrey, I think. So that's it for Jerry Lewis. If you like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and go to my website to book a reading, macroastrology.com. And that's it for now. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.